Now, back live with Andrew Bolt with the Bolt Report.
Clive Hamilton is a former Greens candidate, a professor of public ethics and global warming alarmist. Even so, I am disturbed. No, I'm outraged that Hamilton has now also written a book that publishers will not print for fear of upsetting China. Now, this is a book, ironically, on China's growing influence here, commercial, diplomatic, the spying, the hacking, the covert lobbying. In fact, our top spy agency, ASIO, says the scale and threat of foreign espionage is now greater than during the Cold War. And China, it's responsible for a lot of it. Clive Hamilton's book, then, tackles a very important topic. But first, publisher Allen & Unwin got cold feet, told Hamilton too scared to publish. Then Melbourne University Press also backed out. Now, the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Intelligence and Security is debating on whether to itself publish the book and under parliamentary privilege to at least stop Chinese interests from suing. Joining me is Labor MP Michael Danby, a long-time critic of China's authoritarianism. Michael, great to see you. Hey, listen, should Parliament publish this book?
Well, Andrew, I think you're on to a hot topic. How's this? We've got the Clive Hamilton, Andrew Bolt, Michael Danby united front confronting Chinese sharp power. And how's this? Me holding up a Fairfax publication saying MPs back China book. I agree with you. I think Hamilton's book has got such important information in it. We should be focused on the main issue, which is what The Economist on its front page the other day called Chinese sharp power. That's the interference of an authoritarian power in Australian politics, buying all the Chinese language publications, running all of the Chinese student societies, spending money on political donations, $6 million to both major political parties, which is going to be addressed by the Joint Select Committee on Electoral Matters inquiry into political donations. Hopefully they'll be banned. But this book is a very important point, Andrew, because a number of outlets, including our dear friends at Fairfax and the ABC and Four Corners, are being sued systematically by people who are trying to use stop writs and defamation to suppress this criticism of interference in our political system. And I think we ought to put aside legalistic pettifoggery, and I think that committee, I don't know what they're debating at the moment, but in the national interest should confront the issue of Beijing's interference in Australia and, support our Green friend Clive Hamilton being able to publish his account of what they've been doing here over the last few years.
Honestly, me supporting a cause, publish the Green. Well, there you go. Free speech above
It's amazing, isn't it, hey?
Mate, the free speech issue should unite us all, and I wish that some on the left would support the free speech of conservatives sometimes, like we conservatives supporting the free speech of the left. But here, why is Labor's Foreign Affairs spokesman, Penny Wong, against Parliament publishing this book?
Well, I don't know that she is.
I know
that's news
Why
to me,
would
Andrew.
she be?
Well, look, we've got to be balanced about our attitude to China. Some people are saying that criticism of China is leading to a decline in investment. The Foreign Investment Review Board doesn't say that. They say we've got $169 billion of direct Chinese investment in Australia over the last 5 years. I say that's a good thing, provided it's not done at a strategic level where they buy the Port of Darwin, El Cheapo for $500 million over 100 years, where they try and buy into the electricity grid, say Ausgrid in New South Wales. The Foreign Investment Review Board blocked them. So it's important to be balanced about this. We want good trade and economic relations with China, but we must stand up to any evidence of political interference in Australian politics or Australian public life. And I'm sorry if Penny's,
but you actually
opposed to that. I don't think that's been
Michael, you put your finger on what the objection is, right? And it's a number of people saying it. don't have Parliament publish a book because China will be upset, and these things have consequences. You mentioned investment, security issues, relation, and goodness knows, and I think this is what the publishers are scared of, one of the things they're scared of, hackers, Chinese hackers. Now, aren't those concerns legitimate concerns against publishing a book like this?
Okay, there are concerns about it, but you have to balance one against the other. We should not allow our dear friends at the ABC and Fairfax to be suppressed,
I wish you'd stop saying
shut
dear
up,
friends,
to be censored.
mate.
Well, I'm using it slightly ironically, particularly after my treatment by the Fairfax press over the last
there you go.
Almost since the election. But the serious point is, in the national interest of Australia, we need to know all of this kind of information because the scrutiny of it prevents the most of it. The donations issue being a perfect example. When all of that came out, Andrew, that has put an incredible pressure on both sides of politics at the Electoral Matters Committee to ban foreign donations, and that's a very good thing because we don't want brokers systematically trying to sort of influence the foreign policy of Australia by, investing in the two political parties for that end.
No, well, you mentioned the donations issue. Of course, that's a reference, I suspect, to federal Labor MP Sam Dastyari, forced to resign last year for accepting gifts from tycoons linked to the Chinese regime and for promoting their pro-China agenda, may I add, even warning one tycoon that ASIO was bugging his phone. Now, Michael,
well,
this kind of
Andrew,
influence...
let's not focus. Let's not make this party political. I want to tell you,
it's not party political. It is alarming that it goes right to that level. It scares me, Michael.
Yes,
if it was a Liberal, I'd say exactly
the level
the same.
goes very high up. The level goes very high up in the Liberal Party too, and I think you'll find that there are people in New South Wales, the senior level of the Liberal Party, who've been right into taking this dough and making sympathetic statements as well. So let's hold our horses.
Don't say now on air, but tell me off
blame
air,
everything
okay?
on Sam Dastyari.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. No, well, I don't. I'm just saying that's a really strong example. And look, mate, you're quite right. We have seen former Labor premiers, we have seen a former Liberal trade minister, they accept jobs like that with Chinese companies as soon as they leave. Mate, it's not healthy. And I think you're right. A discussion on this must be facilitated in the public space. What else should we do about this? I mean, the rise of China here is scaring me. What else should we do?
Well, I was very surprised that the Secretary of the Department of Foreign Affairs made that very gutsy speech that she made before the Confucius Institute. That's the kind of thing public officials, secretaries of the Department of Foreign Affairs, Directors General of ASIO need to point out these kind of things, and organisations like the Foreign Investment Review Board, which now has David Irvine on it, a former Australian ambassador to Beijing, need to take into consideration the security considerations of strategic investments from Beijing. So we don't want to be hysterical about it, we don't want to be unbalanced about it, but we have to balance that economic interests of Australia with our strategic interests, and it takes place at all levels, at the level of education, at the level of political donations, at the level of overseas investment that FIRB is supervising, and at our universities and in our political parties.
Well, the universities are really complicit in accepting Chinese money for all that string of Confucius centres. But look, speaking about giving in to totalitarians, Michael, right now some media outlets are fawning over the cheer squad of about 230 pretty women that the North Korean regime has sent to the Winter Olympics, where they've been cheering in synchronised action non-stop, never breaking formation, never being spontaneous. And that cheering has generated headlines such as, like the 1970s, world mesmerised by North Korean cheerleaders, and North Korea's 200-plus cheerleaders command spotlight at 2018 Winter Olympics, and North Korea is winning the Olympics, and it's not because of sports. Now, Michael, can you explain to the audience what these journalists are missing here?
I can understand the average, ordinary South Korean person not wanting there to be a nuclear war with that very aggressive regime in North Korea. But the attitudes of these journalists is sickening. North Korea, I've published on my website a list of all of the concentration camps they have. It is the worst abuser of human rights in the world. They arrest people and they take their grandchildren in with a grandfather or grandmother into concentration camps. There are 300,000 people. I've never seen the Greens organise a demonstration against this, but this is the worst human rights situation in the world. And for these journalists to go overboard because, quite sensibly, the government of South Korea doesn't want to get involved in conflict with North Korea by adulating this North Korean regime is exactly the opposite of what we should do. Keep a balanced outlook on the whole thing.
Absolutely. People should note that the girls are kept housed on a barge so that they can't escape, and they're not allowed to interact, etc., etc. Michael, talking about foreign influence here, Waleed Aly, an ABC host and also a host of Channel 10's The Project, got an American musician, Roger Waters of Pink Floyd, to explain why Israel was bad and should be boycotted. Now, Ali, who is a former spokesman for the Islamic Council of Victoria, seemed very pleased to hear the Jewish nation and the United States that they were getting slammed. Have a listen.
Why the specific focus for you on the creative boycott of Israel? You're prepared to play all manner of countries that have terrible human rights records.
Yeah, like the United States, for instance.
Indeed.
The people of Palestine in 2005 reached out to global civil society and said, please help us. We are living here with no rights.
Okay, Michael. Democratic Israel bad, democratic United States bad, Palestine run by tyrants. That's great. That's great. Well, you're Jewish, I should add, but what's your response to that?
Well, I would like a chance to debate Waleed Aly or Roger Waters on what the boycott, divestment and sanctions plan is. It actually is for the elimination of Israel. It's not a disagreement with the policies of the Israeli state. All of the leaders of the BDS movement, Omar Barghouti, says this repeatedly. So it's not a creative boycott, Waleed. And Roger Waters is himself one of the most hardline, extreme supporters of this boycott, divestment and sanctions. And yes, I am Jewish. I remember when stormtroopers stood outside Jewish shops in Berlin and advocated a similar kind of thing. It's intolerable. Most of the civilised world opposes it, even some of the critics of Israel in Europe, the European countries. Roger Waters did something amazing, though. Andrew, while he was here in Melbourne, a Glasgow music site, of all places, revealed this when they had some of his remarks to a Palestinian conference in Melbourne on Friday. He attacked every major musician in the world who doesn't agree with his geopolitical hatred of Israel or the United States in the most extraordinary rant I've ever seen. Sir Elton John copped it, Radiohead, practically every good musician in the current music scene. So it just does an indication to people in who are not particularly interested in Middle East issues, and nor should they be, of what ratbags are involved in some of these hate Israel movements. And Roger Waters is one of the worst of them. I mentioned to you before the program that he recently had a broadcast where he had a big black pig behind him while he was ranting on one of these issues with a Star of David on it. The guy's beyond the pale as far as I'm concerned.
Michael, right there, enough said, I think. Really enough said. And I do think Waleed Aly should be declaring his affiliations just as you declared yours, but it never happens, of course. Michael Danby, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks very much.